Yeah.
War campaign.
Oh yeah, no, that's just the war campaign assholes. They do that kind of thing.
All right, there it is. We got Officer Patrick McNulty with us. Hail, brother. Hail, we like to say over here, Patrick. That means H for honor, A for accountability, I for integrity, and L for loyalty. Old virtues that we want to bring back into this world today. You know what I mean? We're living in this age of mendacity, of lies, and you know it as a man who has stood up. And I want to salute you and thank you so much for being here and gracing us. And a big hail to the chat. Hail, brethren. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate all the support. Patrick, first of all, man, welcome, brother.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And that was quite the intro. I thoroughly enjoyed it, that's for sure.
Welcome to War Cafe.
Hell, brother. All right, we got, let me take a look at the chat. We got Reboot 2.0, Alberta on board. We got PDS Hi from Toronto, Political Foolishness. The government told us we were all in this together. They were right, except we weren't in the club. That's right. That's how we feel. So, Patrick, Officer Patrick McNulty, talk to us, brother. How did you get active in this? You stood up. You put out some videos, and people started saying, "Hey, how do we not use ArriveCan? How do we get around following these mandates?" First of all, what is a mandate? Is that a law? What is your interpretation as a CBSA officer?
A mandate has no bearing on a CBSA officer's job. We work with laws. So it boggles my mind to see all the red tape that is going on in the field right now when it comes to a border services officer really trying to do their job And instead, I don't know if you've watched several of the videos that I've posted where travelers have entered Canada, returning from abroad, and every officer sounds like they're reading from the same script. So I will just quickly add to that point. Maybe we can discuss this in detail later, but there's something going on at the border, and this has been happening for several years now, where the employer, the government of Canada, is focused on automating the border experience, essentially replacing us with robots. And that's starting to happen already in real time, whether it's an ABC kiosk, which is called an automated border clearance kiosk, or a pick machine, which is a primary inspection kiosk, where instead of facing an officer face-to-face when entering the country, you're staring at a computer screen. So right now, while we do have human officers conducting primary inspection at several locations across the country, you're starting to see the automation of the border experience, at least from my perspective.
You know, it's interesting.
This is not an agency that I even recognize anymore at this point.
Because of the automation aspect between the ABC and the PIC machines, pick machines, right? PIC, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Yeah, we'll explore that. That's very interesting because, you know, I'm a technologist. I was chief technical officer. You and I are very much in very similar positions now where, you know, work has been impacted. You know, I lost my job. You're on leave. And you've, as you mentioned previously in some of your videos, they've made things very difficult for you. But I do salute you, and I thank you very much, brother, for standing up, being a true patriot, and being here and talking to us about this, because I get messages. There's you know, there's other communities, groups of people who are trying to get together and support one another so that people get real information. We cannot depend on legacy media to tell us what our options are. We feel like at this point that officers and agents and PHAC, Public Health Agency of Canada, are not informing us of our rights, so that we actually have to go to alternative sources, which ends up being here. So I really do thank you. We've got H.A.I.L Patrick from Dan Marshall all the way in the UK. H.A.I.L, brother, thank you so much. He says, I do not deal with robots. That's right. People aren't very happy about the robots, but it's interesting because I saw this video. It's called The Border of the Future, and it's a video that was put out by the CBSA. And I think that's sort of, you know, they've got this tagline now, the border of the future. Is that sort of the direction that they're heading in? Is that part of this process?
Yeah, absolutely. They're calling it the modernization of the border.
Mm-hmm. And how many years have you worked for the CBSA?
I was hired in 2016. That was when I finished the grueling application process. It's a 9-step interview process. And when I was hired, you went for training without pay. So what would happen is they would offer you the position upon completion of the training at the CBSA College in Rigaud. So you say goodbye to your family, you quit your job for 18 weeks, you go away for training. And at the end of your training, you are given a job posting anywhere in Canada. If you decline the posting, you don't get the job. So it's a bit of a risky move, at least at the time, for people to apply if you had a family like I did. So my career started off on quite the stressful experience, that's for sure. And my first posting was at the Peace Bridge, which is the Fort Erie land border in the Niagara region. The Peace Bridge connects Fort Erie to Buffalo, New York, which connects I-90 to the QEW. Very, very, very busy land border. So that was where I spent the first 2 years of my career. For personal reasons, you know, my family is from Ottawa. I did everything I could in my power to transfer as quickly as possible. I wound up at headquarters for about 1.5 years. And that was where I lost, if I can be completely honest, complete faith in the functionality of the government of Canada. At that point in time, I still very much believed heavily in what we do with the border, still believed heavily that the government of Canada does have our best interests at heart. But what I saw there was beyond dysfunctional. So I put in for a deployment, and I deployed to the Lansdowne port of entry, which is a land border. The closest sort of major city in the U.S. that it connects to would be Syracuse, New York. It's in the Thousand Islands region here in Canada. I was trained to be a Marine officer by the Coast Guard. And honestly, I spent about 1 year at Lansdowne, which just so happened to be the first year of the government's restrictions, or should I say response, to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I had front row tickets to the show. I saw the step-by-step incremental approach that we took to protect Canadians at the time. And to be honest, you mentioned the onus is on alternative media outlets to get some of this information out there. I was also watching alternative media outlets, and I was comparing this to what I was seeing on the news, comparing this to what I was seeing in reality. And after an entire year, it just simply wasn't adding up. And I was starting to notice, there's that joke that seems to go around every year, you owe your local conspiracy theorist an apology for being right. I was seeing several points that were predicted and sort of dismissed in the media, dismissed at the workplace, that would then later on become a reality. So you can only have too many of those coincidences before you start to realize, okay, something's up here. I want no part in this.
Yeah.
So fast forwarding to 2021 during that first lockdown, the second lockdown, when we announced we were going into another full-blown economic lockdown, I walked off the job. So I walked off the job, and ever since then, I've been on what's called mental stress leave, going on just over a year now. So for those of you who are wondering, have I been fired? No, I've not been fired. I believe the employer is just in a bit of a pickle. Not sure what to do with me. You can't really discipline someone who's on long-term disability. My reasons for being on long-term disability are completely private, none of the employer's business. They still have reached out several times to let me know I'm under investigation, pending termination, so on and so forth. And I feel it's a duty that I have to speak out to Canadians and give another perspective here. And I do have some very valuable frontline experience and a perspective that I have from that position that I think Canadians should hear.
You sure do, brother. It is so important for people to speak out and to actually have, what would be the word, guts. Okay, you can't be a coward in this life. And I got to say, brother, we're living in an age, I try to inculcate that we're all fathers, right? Pan, myself, yourself, and we try to inculcate the best in our children, which is why we keep repeating this mantra here, right? This honor, accountability, integrity, and loyalty, because these are, there was a time when it was so important, to be a man or to be a woman that was respectable. You had to have integrity. You had to have a sense of pride in yourself and honor, right? You had to be accountable. Politicians, we want to hold them accountable. We want to hold ourselves accountable to one another, and just basic loyalty that is so missing today, brother. And I'm seeing that in you embody these great virtues. And I know you've had a rough time, and I know that you had to take this. There it is. Hey, what does that say, brother?
Integritas.
Integritas. See that? Integritas.
Protection, service, integrity is right there on the patch. So everything you just said certainly does apply to every Canada Border Services Agency officer on the job right now. Protection, service, and integrity. So thank you for emphasizing the importance of that one word. My integrity is why I'm sitting here having this discussion with you today.
And I know that it's come at a personal cost to you. And I wish you the best. I know we're going to have to discuss that. We're going to have to talk. We got to make sure that all of our patriots are supported, all right, because there's real world economic impacts to the choices that we make to standing up. And we're going to have to discuss that, brother. I know people want to support you, help you out there. All right, so let's take it down. So here you are. You see these restrictions. Every day there's another level, there's another layer, there's something new. So take us through those early days and we're going to skip the science, we're going to skip all that kind of thing. We're not scientists. We're going to skip all that, but we're going to talk straight up about the mandates and about the restrictions and about the rigmarole that was enacted through that 1 year that you saw.
Sure. Well, what I first noticed at the border was they scrambled to create something called an essential list and a non-essential list. So the government put themselves in a position to dictate to us what is an essential trip and a non-essential trip. And when I say essential, non-essential, I just mean whether or not the reason for you leaving Canada is an essential reason, whether or not you entering Canada is an essential reason. So essentially the government in this scenario decided to play God. And so that was the beginning of, and this had nothing to do with alternative media outlets. I saw this and I was disgusted by it. I understand the initial fear that everyone had. And I was seeing on the news that they were announcing, okay, the border is closed. But the reality is the border wasn't closed. We had commercial truck drivers crossing every single day, not required to isolate. We had this essential list of persons or people who were allowed to cross the border. And I was noticing, wait a minute, everyone here who's being deemed essential is a diplomat, works for the government, or quite frankly, has a ton of money. It wasn't fair. And here we are stonewalling people at the border who want to come and visit their loved ones, whether it's parents in the US who are coming to visit a child that they have as a student. Whatever the reason is, there are so many outrageous examples of people being told, no, you can't come in, and being turned around. And I'm watching this, and it was breaking my heart. So that was step one, the essential travel and non-essential travel.
Talk to me about this. So diplomats, okay, I understand, they would have some kind of government ID, federal government. Also, it would be quite apparent that they work for the government. They were able to flash this kind of information and get a pass. But what about this aspect of, very wealthy people? Now, how does that bring itself to bear at the border?
People flying in on their private jets, going to.
Say again. Oh, I think you just. Oh, sorry, you just.
It was just.
There was a little. I just missed that.
Just
people
outrageous.
flying in.
Here. There are very specific people I could mention who the audience would know, but I can't do that. I can't disclose confidential information. I could put myself in serious jeopardy if I do that.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. I'm not asking you to do that. We don't want that. We gotta stay. Listen, even if the government at large is not, they don't have integrity, we're going to respect the law, and we are going to be peaceful, and we're going to play by the rules because we want to set an example for the future generations. So, and we want to respect also, right, the great inheritance that we have being a part of this nation. So that's what we're going to do here. So that last part there, it cut out, but you were saying people flying in on their private jets and then
going to self-isolate, at their $1 million cottage on a lake.
Right on. Okay.
And the sort of the farce of it all, the big smoke and mirrors of it all is that there really is no mechanism of enforcement, right? Once you declare to us, this is where I'm going to self-isolate, that was it. And at the time, we then started relying on, informants, basically, to comply with the 14-day quarantine.
What do you mean?
What was happening is...
Yeah. You're blowing my mind. Informants.
Yeah. There was a tip line set up. This blows my mind. A tip line set up for people to call in and basically rat out their neighbors for not complying with the 14-day quarantine. I don't even know if I can talk about this without keeping a straight face.
No, I know. I'm laughing because I feel like I'm transported, to those dark days, right? The dark days of the Great War and the Second World War. I feel like I'm being transported to the USSR, the communists who destroyed so many lives and freedom. I feel like I'm being transported to a world where socialism is a great god and we've forgotten what it means to be free. So tell me, please, about this before I continue going off here. So there's a tip line.
Yes. So essentially what was happening, and I'll just allow me to elaborate on how I would process a traveler at that time. So someone drives up, I take their passports and I scan. Instead of the normal information screen that would generally pop up when you scan someone's passport, which would be their bio data, any enforcement history, whether or not they're a person of interest, whether or not there's a warrant out for their arrest, just some very basic stuff pops up when you initially scan that passport. But instead of that screen popping up, now it's a public health screen. And this public health screen has a ton of questions that we need to ask each traveler related to whether or not they have any symptoms, whether or not they have a quarantine plan in place, where they're going to stay. It was still a very invasive line of questioning, given the fact that we have no authority to question a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident of this country what they intend to do once they're here. This is home free. This is your land. We have no authority to ask you what you're doing once you enter your country. But here we are, under the guise of an Emergencies Act, asking an invasive line of questioning because the computer's telling us to. We can't move on unless we've filled in the information that we've asked you and then checked off whether or not you are exempt from quarantine or not exempt from quarantine. Once I formulated my own opinion as an officer that there was no emergency, I started clicking off exempt for several people based on their situation. Okay, so I would tell people, heads up, here's what's going to happen. When you get home, your neighbors are going to know that you've been abroad, or they're going to see that you're visiting and that you have a Florida license plate or whatever. Be very smart about when you choose to leave your home. That's how I would explain it to people. Be very smart, because your neighbors are going to call our tip line and they're going to tattle on you. And then you're going to get a visit from whether it's public health or your local police unit, just checking in and making sure you're compliant. So there was a tip line set up essentially for neighbors to call in and snitch on their neighbors for not complying with the 14-day quarantine. And I know you want to steer away from any discussion on this channel whether or not that 14-day quarantine is necessary or effective, but I will just point out that as it stands right now, if you are asymptomatic and you enter Canada, you are expected to quarantine for 14 days. However, if you enter here with symptoms, it's only 10 days. So I fail to understand the science or the logic behind that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? I hate to say it, brother, but neither you or I are scientists, and that's really we need to get a little bit of education. Even though what you just said sounds quite reasonable to a layman like myself and to yourself and to Pan, I'm sure, but we're not accredited, brother. We're not accredited, so we're not accredited. So we're gonna let that one.
Not a scientist, not at all.
No.
We got Laura Pock. Thank you so much for the donation, sister. I really appreciate you being here, Laura. I've read your comments, and I thank you very much for being here. A big hail to Donut Swan as well. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it for your support over the years. Really do, man. Hope everything's going good, Tony. All right, so let me see over here. Okay, so we've got a snitch line. So did people, first of all, was this a snitch line that was used a lot? I know we want to talk about, and I got a whole list, right? People have been asking all kinds.
It caused a lot of confusion, a lot of headaches, because keep in mind, right, we had a list of essential travel and non-essential travel. So here we are determining at the border whether or not you are required to quarantine or not. Caused mass confusion. Like I said, people are snitching on their neighbors, not realizing that they're exempt for whatever reason, or they're snitching on their neighbors and their neighbors aren't exempt. They're just living their life, which is what I've very publicly been telling the public to do at this point. You enter Canada and you're told to self-isolate for 14 days by a public health official. They have no authority to tell you to do so. Feel free to just live your life.
Wow. Okay, so you're telling people at this point, as a CBSA officer with a lot of experience, that that these people are allowed to come in regardless? Because we've had these questions. I'm going to go through a couple of these, and I know you've answered these before in other fora, but we're going to cover them because I know people are asking. So let's see here. Okay, number one. This is from Sam, right? So big thank you to Sam. And thank you to everybody sending questions. We're going to see how much we can cover here, but we're going to try to cover as much as possible. Can I legally record these, and use the words tyrants, with my cell phone and hold them accountable, whether it's inside my car or outside of my car while they're searching my vehicle in secondary?
Yes, absolutely. We've had this discussion in the field, and this was clarified by the employer. We are not allowed to instruct you or order you to stop filming. You have every right to film us during the entire interaction. And I'll add to that, you also have the right to observe the inspection of your vehicle from start to finish. So do not allow the officer to do this search when you are not present. You have every right to request that you see it, and a good officer is going to inform you on the spot of your right to that anyways. So this was just part of the regular customs exam. This is how I was trained. You inform the traveler, the person in front of you, of everything that you're going to do before you do it.
Okay. All right. Okay. So there you go. That's question one. Thank you, Sam. To remember that, ladies and gentlemen out there, you must record, and you have the right to record everything. Any search of your vehicle, you have the right to record. Use your rights.
Absolutely.
Know your rights. Yeah. Know your rights, please. Okay. So we got this snitch line. We're at a place now where these restrictions are coming in. So the snitch line is activated. You're getting tips of people who are breaking their quarantines. Possibly the neighbors don't know if they're exempt or not. What is your opinion on that right there? And I'm asking you to editorialize, but what's your opinion there in terms of having a snitch line? What is the effect on society?
at that point, I had my personal opinions on our response, whether it was at a local level or the national level. And this tip line, I thought this was the beginning of, and you pointed it out, communism. This idea that the government is more of a neighbor to us than our actually neighbors. It's beyond outrageous to me. Okay? The government is not there for you when you run out of sugar or when you run out of ketchup or when you run out of salt or whatever. The government is not there for you in an emergency, right? Your neighbors are. Whatever happened to a sense of community. And I just saw this as just so wrong. And it all makes sense, though, when you realize just how controlled the media is in this country. I had no idea. Prior to 2020 just how controlled the messaging is on televisions here in Canada. I had no idea.
Absolutely, yeah. Over $595 million in. So the way they get around it, right, is they give these tax write-offs. That's the big one right there. So you can claim against your taxes. That way they're saying they're not giving you money to the media companies. They're claiming against their taxes. There's a whole video I've done on that, and there's many other Canadian Heritage Department stipends and programs to enrich the media. There are lists of public lists of people who've received the money. It's incredible, really. Truly, the media is at this point I wouldn't call it a fourth estate, right, or a fifth estate. This is now a part and parcel of the government. It is actually part of the legislative or the legal arm or the lawmaking arm of the government. It is there simply to tell us the party line, and we've got to accept it. And if we don't, we're crazy, right? That's where we are. So here you are, you're feeling nuts, you're seeing this stuff happen. Okay, so we got this initial line. What happens next? Right away, you've got this screen popping up on your screen, and it's asking you public health questions. What's the next restriction you see?
Specific to the border, they essentially just amended their initial restrictions. So they kept up the charade of the essential travel and non-essential travel. And then, of course, once there was a rollout for the medical procedure, all roads pointed to, if you do not have this medical procedure, you will not be able to cross the border. And by the time that was rolled out, I was already off the job. For personal mental health reasons. And at that point in time, I had also been speaking out on my own private Instagram account. Right. And we touched on this before we went live here. Mm-hmm. I had just seen in society as a parent how children were still facing the brunt of the restrictions while adults were just free to live our lives unless you wanted to go to a gym. Gyms were still closed, not allowed. But you could go to the liquor store, you could go to patios, you could go to a garden center, but children weren't allowed to play on a playground. The messaging on television was that children still need to be kept home and away from their friends. This is beyond outrageous. This is how children develop, okay? Healthily, they need exercise, they need movement, they need socialization. The list goes on.
They need to see other people's faces, They need to see other kids and parents' faces and people's faces and teachers' faces. Absolutely, it's part of development, socialization. Well, this is the thing, right? We're all fathers here, and we're homeschooling, my wife and myself. Pan as well, brother. You're homeschooling, and
we homeschool.
Yep. And this is And I see this huge rise when you look at the statistics, right, of homeschooling, and I'm not surprised, where you've got this politicization of the educational system, and as well what seems to be Baroque rules that are implemented at the whim of our rulers.
Yes.
So we got the parks. I still remember over here, they had the hill the kids are sliding down, tobogganing down, right? And those hills, they had a sign, no tobogganing, because they wouldn't want the. You remember that? You know what I'm talking about. They put the signs up everywhere over here.
It was just so ridiculous. So I had, I had started to speak out, and I was met with backlash.
Were you?
Family members, friends, coworkers. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I figured out very quick. Keep in mind, this is the middle of 2020. We're kind of, I'm jumping all over the place here, but middle of 2020, I'm still working the front line. I'm starting to speak out on my own private, closed Instagram, and met with backlash. Nobody shared the same views. I was hearing the same catchphrases. Oh, this is just pandemic fatigue. This is, I was hearing one-liners from the news coming at me left, right, and center from all of my friends and coworkers. And that was the beginning of me feeling like I was certainly losing my mind. Flash forward to the next year where I'm off work on mental stress leave. I then started to speak out very publicly just about public health restrictions in general. I wasn't speaking out against the border. I was just speaking out about masking in schools, for one, social distancing in schools, how outrageous it was. And I went so far as to live broadcast a conversation with a superintendent from the Upper Canada District School Board, where I got her to clarify on the air that there's a simple form for parents to fill out that cannot be denied, and their child will be mask exempt. That video, while I'm sure it helped maybe a handful of people across the country, at a local level here where I live, no other parent did it. No, not one. I got a lot of support in private. Hey, good job. But no one else followed through with that. And I just thought, what is going on here? What can we do to encourage anyone else to take a stand?
Look, brother,
let me
tell you something. All right, I'm going to interrupt you for one moment here. I know what you feel, right, when you're alone and you're standing there and you're doing it, and you've paid a personal private cost. I'm not going to get into, but you paid a heavy cost. The thing is, yes, you have, brother. The thing is, what we're doing is for the goodness in the world. You understand? We're doing something for the goodness in the world. This is, they say prayer. I always tell my children, prayer is action. That's what we're doing. This is the truest form of prayer to the goodness in the world. And that is this. It is exactly what you've done over here. So when you stood up 2020, right, and you've got this school magnate on the line and you're live streaming it, and you've got private support, but nobody is willing to stand up. You're the trailblazer. You are the man putting out that good into the world, brother. And that's what I want. This is it. I want to put that out into the world. I want to stand up and I want to encourage others to be courageous, to be brave. And you're doing an amazing job of that. So and people don't know. You don't know what Officer Patrick McNulty, he has paid the price, not in terms of jobs and all that kind of stuff, but there has been a cost, and I'll leave it at that. All right, we got second question over here. Can they legally take my driver's license from my wallet?
The short answer is yes, however, only in relation to a customs examination. And what I mean by a customs examination is when you arrive at the border, and I'll use a land border, for example. When you arrive at a land border, you may get instructed to park your vehicle for a search. That's part of a customs examination. So you'll notice an officer is asking you questions and they're writing on a piece of paper. They're essentially recording your verbal declaration. So how long have you been away from Canada? And you say, hey, 2 weeks, whatever. They're writing that down, 2 weeks. They're asking you what you're bringing into the country from abroad, whether or not you're importing currency of a value equal to or greater than 10,000 Canadian, any firearms or weapons, the list goes on. And they're verifying they're writing down your declaration, and they send you to secondary inspection. And this is where officers will search you and your vehicle for the purposes of verifying that declaration. So if you have not committed any contravention under the Customs Act and the examination is done, then no. Taking your driver's license as part of an examination would be, let's say I find a gun in your car, right? An undeclared firearm, and now I've arrested you for smuggling a firearm into Canada. Now I'm taking your driver's license because it's all going into my report. Who you are, your address, your driver's license, the vehicle that you were driving in. I'm going to record your registration. Okay, so yeah, I'll take all of that information in relation to the offense that you committed under the Customs Act when entering Canada. Or perhaps you're a drunk driver, and now we're operating under the Criminal Code of Canada, and now I've arrested you for impaired driving. Same thing. I'm going to take your driver's license because it's in relation to a contravention under the Criminal Code of Canada. What we're seeing now is officers using the Customs Act as a guise, okay, in order to then take this information and give it to public health. It's wrong. It's outrageous. It's unlawful. And we have no authority to do it whatsoever. So most officers, I shouldn't say most because, I don't know if it's most or not, but several officers now have reached out to one, say thank you, because they're tired of dealing with this nonsense as well. This is awful for anyone who truly wants to do the job. This is nothing but a hindrance when you're looking for guns, drugs, and bad people entering the country. All this public health stuff is pure nonsense to us.
I've heard you talk about that. The fact that there is child trafficking. I've heard you talk about that in different videos, and that This is the kind of stuff. This is the real. I mean, you signed up to do a job.
Yes.
Something good.
Yes.
And you were being
And we
hindered.
have a unique opportunity at the border. One, because of our intelligence gathering capability, we have the potential to be one of the most effective law enforcement agencies on planet Earth. Any border law enforcement agency, my gosh, unlimited potential. We're a new agency, right? We were founded in, the CBSA is very, 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 very recent. So it's just such a shame to see this agency with all this potential. We're tasked with enforcing over 90 acts of parliament at the border. So all of this public health stuff thrown on top of an already overworked law enforcement agency, it's beyond outrageous.
Right. Okay. And I can see that, man, when you're there. And I remember you talking about the fact that there's, you get a less of a fine for smuggling in a gun than you do for the tickets, these quarantine fines that they're passing people. These $5,000 or $6,255, right? That's what they're sending people. Yeah.
I always use the example of this one traveler who was arrested for smuggling a firearm with the intention of murdering his ex-wife here in Canada. He received a $1,500 fine and was sent back to the U.S. So here we have families coming back from their vacation in the Dominican Republic or Costa Rica or wherever, and they're being hit with $6,500 fines per family member, children included, for not disclosing a medical procedure status or for refusing to download an application onto your smartphone.
Okay, so Patrick, we got the ArriveCan app, and I've shown this before. In the description on the app stores, whether it's for the Android store, which is the Google Play Store, or whether it's on the iPhone, which is the App Store on the Apple Store, it says in the description that it is not necessary to read. I'm gonna put this up, okay? I know it's gonna take a second here, but I think it's important to show this, okay? ArriveCan on the App Store, because this is amazing. It's written.
Show the reviews. Show the reviews, the functionality. Let's just pretend that this is, God's gift to us here in Canada. Let's just pretend that we genuinely all want this. Like I said before, the government is wildly dysfunctional and incompetent. This application is pure garbage. And they have implemented, I'll just quickly
tell me,
intercept here.
I want to hear
They had implemented the ArriveCan application when I was on the front line during the government's response to this. And it was pitched as a convenience tool. Instead of you arriving and me having to physically ask you, where are you going to be staying? What's the phone number that public health can reach you at? Are you symptomatic? You enter it in advance. And the idea was that you would show up, I would scan your passport, and it would autofill your answers to the app. Do you think it worked once for me? No. It was just people would come up angry. I already filled out the application, and I'd say, "Well, it didn't work."
Listen, I'm a programmer, right? I was chief technical officer for Get It Local here, 130 Slater, until they fired me for going down to Freedom Convoy. Anyhow, point is that these guys. We were building mobile apps, right? It was like a food ordering thing, right? So we had for local companies. And we had, the app for the delivery, right, for the drivers. We had the app for the users to use, and then we had, obviously, you got them for both platforms. So you got 4 apps in total. And I got to say, man, it's like computer stuff's all busted, right, at the end of the day. That's just what it is. And now here you are saddled with this technological quagmire. Not to mention and I got to go into that into another video, but when you start to investigate who got paid to do this work, to build ArriveCan, the actual application, the mobile developers, it's really fishy. You know what I mean? It's like, who are these companies? You can't really, there's not a lot of detail about them, and it seems like they're just, they were just formed. Okay, take a look at this, brother, over here. Let me just throw this up here. So it says over here, it says right in the ArriveCan App Store, this is the Apple one, but it says the same thing. You look it up in the Android one. Travelers with a right to enter Canada, such as Canadian citizens, Canadian permanent residents, and persons registered under the Indian Act, will not be denied boarding of their flight. Okay, so that's getting on the plane, or entry to Canada if they do not use ArriveCan, but may be required to do a test and quarantine, and then it says and face fines. So I got a question. Okay, so we just seen that right there. All right, so Patrick, right there, people are saying to me, they're like, "Ro, there was a fellow. He was come up from Yellowknife, I think it was, or Nunavut, around that area." Okay, and this guy, he was with his family, and he said to me he couldn't get on the plane. Right? They couldn't get on the plane. They were denying, and I just found that out today. Air Canada have been super sticklers, right? They weren't granting anyone religious exemptions or anything. Now, I don't know what they were doing in terms of ArriveCan, but what do you do when you're standing there? Okay, you're trying to get on your flight. Let's say you don't even have a connecting flight, because that's going to add another level, another dimension of stress. And if you've got dependents and you've got a tired wife and you've got a bunch of kids and a baby that's crying, let's ignore all that. You're a single man, all right? You're strapping youth. You've got no issues. You're ready to stand for freedom. And now here you are, standing at the counter or at the gate. You're trying to get in. So how does it work? Who asks you? At what point do you get asked? You go through security? Is it after security? Or is it at the gate when you're trying to get on the plane?
Yeah, it would be at the gate when you're trying to get on your plane. You know how they verify your boarding pass?
Right.
These are just airline employees. They want to do their job, get home, and they have a checklist that's just being provided. I'm assuming from headquarters to whatever company we're talking about here, whether it's Air Canada or WestJet, whatever. They're just going through the checklist. What do I need to look at? Your identification. I need to see your boarding pass, and they need to make sure that you've done what's required of you in order to board the flight. Where this gets confusing is the airlines have been misguided by our government intentionally. And I think I saw this on one of your videos that you posted, where you eloquently described how they passed the buck to the airline carriers to get them to do their dirty work. You cannot deny a Canadian citizen entry to Canada. You enter by right. A permanent resident, you enter by right. A status Indian, you enter by right. It doesn't matter what crime you've committed, right? Because you could be inadmissible to Canada for having a criminal record. Doesn't matter. You enter by right. This is your country. And I'm going to say it again.
No, I love it. I love it. Yes, sir.
By right. As in, excuse me, there's no stopping me from coming home. So when I read these messages where, Canadians are just pouring their hearts out about how they've been, in the U.S. for 3 years, and they're scared to come home, and they're worried about being denied entry. Wow, look at that. Look at the messaging that we have put out to the rest of the world.
No, we have, man. We have. There's so much fear, brother, because they've done this I truly believe that this has been a strategy. Now, I'm going to be really careful with my words here, okay? Because of the world that we're living in terms of the technological platforms that allow us to speak and allow us to propagate our message, okay? So think about what I said there and understand that I've got to constrain and circumscribe my words. We are living under a campaign where the information projected at us is designed to be confusing.
Yes.
To give fear to us. Because when fear hits your limbic system, your frontal cortex is disconnected. At that point, we are susceptible to suggestion. We're susceptible. Our rights will be contravened because we simply can't make rational decisions.
And to the officers who may be watching this out there, you might recall from our training, this is why we practice our gross motor skills as opposed to our fine motor skills in our use of force training. because when you're fearful and your adrenaline, right, you're tunnel visioned, you're not thinking properly, you're not able to do the fine motor skills, always gross motor skills. Just to add to that. So yeah, the fear certainly works. The confusion certainly works. Mass confusion, I've noticed, tends to equal mass compliance, because you just don't want that headache that you just described of being told at the, as you're about to board your flight, no, you can't come on. So what I've asked the public to do is to print off that page from the Government of Canada website where it specifically says, as it's talking about ArriveCan, about halfway down the page, it clearly states that you will not be denied entry into Canada. And that is what the airline is worried about. They're worried that they're going to transport you. You won't be allowed into Canada, and then you are the airline's problem. They're liable for you. They have to fly you back to wherever you came from, but that will never happen. So just by presenting this form, I'm hearing a mixed bag of stories. Some people are told it didn't work. Others are sharing their success stories across the internet, where just by showing that, the airline then presented a waiver, just something for you to sign that basically releases them from any liability. And that's just it's not necessary if you're a Canadian citizen, a PR, or a status Indian. They're just out of an abundance of caution. They're getting you to sign this form. So that's working, but let's discuss, okay, let's say you weren't allowed on your flight. Ooh, get loud, get very loud, record everything, record the reasons why, do your best to speak to the highest level of supervisor. Don't get angry, but be very clear and concise in explaining that you are a citizen, and under no circumstances will you be denied entry into Canada. But let's say you missed your flight. On this webpage, and I don't know how helpful they'll be, but there is a list on that same ArriveCan page where there's a hyperlink to a list of representatives who are overseas. So whether or not that could connect you to a Canadian representative in an embassy in whichever country that you're in, but that decision would need to be overruled at that point. And I would get very, very, very loud. And I haven't really heard any scenarios where that's actually happened to someone where they've missed their flight. All I've heard is that Canadians were then bullied into downloading the application just to appease the flight attendant or the gatekeeper in order to get on the flight. So, and that's what I'd like to see not happen. If you're gonna stand your ground all the way, because by refusing to provide that information through ArriveCan, when you arrive here in Canada, public health is going to try and obtain that information from you. And once again, you can treat them like they're invisible. You don't have to hand them your passport. You don't have to answer any of their questions. And you most certainly do not have to take any test on the spot administered by them. You can treat them as if they're invisible, walk right past them, come home and live your life. They're going to threaten you. They're going to potentially say that they'll detain you. They'll insist that they have the right to arrest you. And I can promise you, they do not.
Beautiful.
So the public health officials, the PHACs, do they have any authority to write tickets?
Zero. They've been suddenly granted, right? Just granted this authority. And I'm noticing now they have these cute little badges that they wear around their neck. It's quite adorable. The Public Health Agency of Canada did a massive hiring spree in the middle of 2020, taking anybody off the street, hiring them, putting them through a 2 or 3 week training course, and boom, off you go. It was outrageous. I watched the implementation of the public health agents arriving at our land border, and it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. They're poorly trained, not very good at dealing with the public. And there are examples on my Instagram page where you can just see how rude they are. At the end of the day, and I'll point to my patch again, protection, integrity, and service, as in I am here to serve you. So it doesn't matter if you're issuing someone a monetary penalty. I've had this happen to me several times in my career where I have just finished arresting someone for several hours, right? I've got them in a cell for several hours. I've issued them a monetary penalty of $2,000, and they've shook my hand at the end of it. And that's how it should be done, right? This is a service. And what we're seeing is public health just treating Canadians who do not wish to disclose their medical status as if they're criminals and talking to them as if they're criminals. And this is what I can't stand watching this. This is wrong. And I understand Canadians just are confused and have no idea that they do not have to interact with these people whatsoever. And I'll just add to that, part of the charade when you're behind closed doors, you see them wearing their hazmat outfit, this terrifying, they've got the face shield and the mask and the gloves and the blue, right? And then they go to the lunchroom and they take it off and they're just hanging out with everyone else who's not wearing that. And then at the end of their shift, they're riding the same train that everyone else rides. And it's a charade.
Of course it is. Of course it is. It's, it's health theater. It's theater of the absurd, right?
They gave themselves a raise and they're giving themselves awards now. And
oh yeah, I saw that. I want to reiterate something you said there that was really key, and I think this is something that I haven't heard before, but only from you. And I'm not sure if you got this from somewhere else, but it's brilliant, and I think it bears repeating. Mass confusion equals mass compliance.
Yes, that is what I have seen. Based on my observations, I will say that over and over and over. The more confused we are, the more we'll comply.
Brilliant. That is a very keen observation. Remember that one, ladies and gentlemen. Mass confusion equals mass compliance. So the more you know your rights, the more you don't have to comply. All right, let me take a look over here. We've got Lisa Proust Research. Thank you so much, Lisa. She says, Patrick, you are the best for bringing awareness to these horribly illegal things. 1 billion times thank you. That's Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. And she says, can you kindly ask Patrick if he was illegally let go from his job or if he is still working at the border? Thank you.
No, I have not been terminated from my position as a border services officer yet. I have 2 formal letters written. Well, one is written by the Regional Director General. His name is H.A.I.L. He sent me this letter back in September of 2021. And my most recent email was just 2 weeks ago, and they've replaced H.A.I.L. with an acting Regional Director General. And this gentleman once again stated that I'm under investigation. I'm expected to attend any meetings related to the investigation. And they are reminding me that I am violating our code of conduct by speaking out against the government of Canada. And what's interesting about that is if you go and you read the CBSA code of conduct, which is publicly available for anyone to read, you'll notice that management has a duty under the code of conduct to uphold the charter rights of citizens and employees. And from my perspective, a lot of officers went several months without pay, and many have retired just based on refusing to disclose their medical status in relation to, you call it a medical procedure, I call it an injection.
Absolutely, brother. Potatoes, or as they say in India, tomatoes, tomater. All right, let's see.
There you go.
I thought you liked that. All right, we got Dominic.
Multicultural.
All right, yeah, man. We got Dominic. Hail, brother. Dominic Pantaleo. Hail, brother. All the way in Toronto. And he says, hail, fellow patriots. My friend just crossed the border and declined questions about medical info, declined P.H.A.C., so that's Public Health Agency of Canada, those are the red coded fellows, P.H.A.C., was threatened with a fine and then moved on.
Look at that. So threatened with a fine and then nothing came of it. And that's a success story, because if you read the Government of Canada website, it emphasizes that you may receive a fine. So that's based on discretion. That's not guaranteed. It's not saying you will. It's not saying you shall. It's saying you may. So there's a lot of discretion in the field. I don't know what it's like to be a public health agency officer, whatever they're calling themselves. But I know that as an officer at the border, I can catch you committing a contravention of the Customs Act, and I'll decide how harsh the penalty is going to be, right? I'll use my head. I'll use my judgment. Perhaps it's a busy day. Perhaps we're dealing with real crime, and perhaps all you did was fail to, I don't know, declare your groceries. So I'm just going to have a conversation with you and say, hey, hey, next time, just tell us. Have a good day, right? We use our discretion for a reason. So I'm seeing this mass confusion in the field where officers are just overwhelmed. I mentioned before, we are tasked with enforcing over 90 acts of parliament. That's a lot. There's no one officer anywhere in the agency that just has this information in their head. So unless you are continuously trying to investigate these new OICs, they're called Orders in Council. This is where a group of people in government just decide to make up new laws on the spot. It's very, very, very dicey. So we're seeing officers not question anything. They're just blindly following orders without realizing the implications of doing so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Patrick, I got to ask you: have you been following these 4 court cases? So there are 4 court cases currently running that are challenging the travel mandates. Okay, so the travel ban, travel mandates that took place for about 8 months between the end of October and June 20th, 2022. So for about 8 months, travel was restricted to those who had taken a certain medical procedure. We're going to leave it at that. Now then, these court cases currently, there's one, I just want to name these people. You know what I mean, Patrick? I think we got to recognize, as we are recognizing your valor, I want to recognize the valor of others out there who are true patriots and standing up for our nation. And truly, I think, yes, brother, they're going to be part of the history. You understand? This is what's happening here. We're going to be part of history in the making right over here. All right, we've got, of course, we've got Sean Rickard and Carl Harrison. These are guys who are born in the UK. One fellow is a citizen of Canada. The other fellow is only a permanent resident. But they both felt very strongly about these restrictions. And they contacted Roman Barber, right, who is actually cast out of the Conservative Party for standing up many moons ago. And he connected them with a fellow named Sam Presvelos, a lawyer in Toronto. At that point, the 4 of them, the 3 of them then, after Roman Barber connected them, went on to start this court case. A short period after, you had Nabil Ben Naoum, a young Arabian background lawyer. Nobody really knows him, but I wanted to put that out there, okay, because we see so many compliant immigrants, truly, people from different countries. And I want to put that out there because there's a lot of fear in those immigrant communities. And a lot of them, I say, they don't understand the concept of freedom, okay? But there are some, like this fellow, Nabil Ben Naoum, who I got to say, big hail, brother. And he stood up and he launched his own lawsuit. Then Maxime Bernier as well. Now, the timeline might be, one might have launched it before, so I don't want to get that wrong there. Regardless, Brian Peckford et al. Also launched a challenge to test the constitutionality of the travel mandates that did not allow over 5 million Canadians from traveling across the border, okay, for about 8 months. Now then, the federal court consolidated these 4 court cases together to preserve court resources. All right, and all this testimony. You're right. I know, it's kind of funny, right? So then, right, and all these court resources, they were saying that's the reason they're going to put it all together in one court. And now the testimony, cross examinations, affidavits, testimonials from their experts is coming to the surface. There's videos on this channel all about that. Check that out on the War Campaign channel. You're going to see that. It's pretty neat. You're going to see the mendacity, the fact that people in Transport Canada who were directly creating the regulations that you were enforcing did not even have a science degree. Okay, this is incredible. Right. Yeah, that's right. They were part of the recovery team in Transport Canada. There was not a a medical degree. Sorry, let me correct that. A medical degree among those people. So this is the quality and caliber of those who are creating the rules. I want to put that out there because there's too many people don't know this. Okay, so there are patriots. There's the JCCF. Okay, this is the Justice Constitutional Foundation over here in Canada that is fighting as well. So we've got some great lawyers. There's another, I think he's a Pakistani or Indian lawyer, and he's also pushing very hard. He's been working he's been working specifically against the Emergency Act. All right, so there's a lot of fantastic people out there that we don't know because mass media doesn't want us to know. You understand? The legacy media they don't want us to know about you, Patrick. They don't want us to know that there's an officer who took his oath very seriously. And he's standing up here and he's going to be answering your questions. Let me go through some over here. We got, can I ask every officer that approaches me to identify themselves on camera?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You'll notice we have our name tags on the uniform as well. So just by videoing, you will see. And I did post a video earlier where on my Instagram page at ExporterCop, where I just outlined how easy it is to file a complaint. Anytime you cross the border, that crossing is linked to the officers who processed you. So when you file this complaint, it goes to national headquarters, emails the local chief or superintendent at your location, and on the spot, you do not start your job that day until you've responded to the complaint. And that's where you'll have to basically state the acts that you were operating under, what your authority was to do what you did. And as we're discussing, court cases, this is very, very, very valuable evidence. We need officers to start putting it in writing what acts they're even operating under at this point. I'm hearing officers say Emergencies Act, others saying Quarantine Act, others are saying Contraventions Act. So it's very, 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 very confusing.
Okay, I got a question here from Benito in the chat. Benito Fimo. He says, what do you do if they don't let you board a plane in a foreign country?
Basically the same thing that we discussed before. If you go to my Instagram page, I did.
Yeah, the link is in the description. The link, it's Border Cop. The link's already there in the description. Check that out. Make sure you subscribe to Mr. Patrick McNulty, Officer CBSA Officer Patrick McNulty. The link is there. Get there. He puts out amazing info. All right, if you are worried and you want to travel, all right, this guy is out there and he is supporting us. He is sharing his knowledge and all right, continue, brother.
So I had shared the link in my bio, and Instagram removed it, which is very bizarre. But I did share a screenshot, and people have been using this screenshot. It's directly from the Government of Canada webpage, where it clearly states if you're a citizen, a PR, or a status Indian. So if
Instagram removed the link to a Government of Canada website.
Wow. They did. Yeah. It said, and it listed 4 reasons, and you know how it just gives like a generic, it said link is removed. You can no longer edit your profile. So for an entire day, I couldn't, put a link tree or anything back up. And it had said it was the 4 reasons were sale of firearms or drugs, soliciting sexual services, supporting terrorism or other forms of hate. And I can't remember what the last one was, but
listen, I'm gonna say I think the only thing I can think of is that you're a very sensual man. I mean, I'm just being honest here, brother. I got a lot of people, That's the only one that I can think of.
The ladies love it.
That's it, man. Ladies love it. All right, man. So, okay, so right there, that link. What we're gonna do when we get off the air, and we're gonna get to this work, right? Because you are putting yourself out there. What I want to do is I want to create some resources for people. I want to create a place, okay, where I think I'm gonna put up a forum. You're gonna be instant moderator. People are gonna ask questions. You can point them, all right, and also have all your videos there linked to your Instagram, so people can find.
Wonderful.
You know what I mean? We got to do this, Patrick, because we got to get the info to people. They want to shut us down, and I got all these domains. I got all kinds of servers and whatever because I'm a computer guy. I'll throw that up there, and then I'll put you right there as moderator, min on that thing, so that you can point them, hey, check out this Instagram link. Here it is. We can drive traffic over there. People can see all your stuff. They can find you. And when, Instagram doesn't like a link, well, hey, it's on this site right here. We just be like, hey.
There we go. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because this is crazy.
It'd be nice to have a one-stop shop because even Instagram, over time, the videos kind of get lost right down at the bottom. They degrade themselves over time. It's a very poor platform, but I do use it because I check the metrics. It does reach a ton of people, and it's reaching an age demographic that could make an impact. I check the analytics, and it says most people are between mid-20s to late 70s, really.
Awesome.
So it's quite the captive audience there.
You're doing a great job.
Any assistance that you could provide, that'd be awesome. And I'm fairly close to Ottawa. I'm about an hour's drive from you.
You're where, Brockville over there, 1,000 Islands?
Yeah.
You're still there, eh? Oh, wow. Fantastic, man. Right on. Okay, perfect, man. You got to come down. You got to stick around. Stay at my place over here, man. I got the spare room, and bring your kids with you, man. We'll have a good time over here. You can meet my wife. I'll do some barbecue. You eat steak?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I like to hear, brother.
Steak.
I know, right?
Eat steak.
Of course. I love it, brother. All right, let me see over here. We got Sorry, man. There's so many messages. Let me take a look. I don't want to miss them, All right, we got Lisa Proust. She says, I love what you said. Mass confusion / mass compliance. That's right. Mass confusion leads to mass compliance. That's a line that I never heard before, right? Until, Patrick right here, he coined that. And I think that's mind-blowing stuff, man. Mass confusion equals mass compliance. Your courageous disclosure is important, she says. I have a site that discloses real effects of X, Y, and Z, which I'm not going to read out, but thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. We got UBEU. That's UBEU who sends a donation. Thank you. I appreciate that as well. Thank you very much, UBEU. We have Stephen Lee. Question: what are the current rules to enter Canada for U.S. citizens regarding this medical procedure for people who have not taken it? Love the stream.
That's a good question, and I can hop on here real quick to clarify, because
please do.
At the end of the day, they're U.S. citizens. Generally, almost have a privilege at the border, right? No visa required to enter. Anytime you enter, you can stay here for 6 months. All you have to do is leave. You can come right back. That 6 months extends. So generally, U.S. citizens, just due to how our relationship between Canada and the U.S. Would have some sort of special privilege, but in this instance, it all boils down to your reason for coming to Canada. So if an officer determines that it's discretionary, as in, I'm just coming to visit or maybe visit a family member, then an officer might decide that that's discretionary. If you then refuse to play ball, you refuse to download the ArriveCan or disclose your status, there's a good chance they'll just turn you around at the border, which is unfortunate. With that being said, if you're crossing at a land border, take your chances, man. There's a good chance you might get an officer like me, and up the road you go. But it really does come down to your reason for coming to visit.
Interesting. It's amazing. It's not something that as a layperson, it's something that I'm thinking about now, the amount of discretionary power. And that's the reason that you've had that extensive training that you noted that H.A.I.L, these brand new hires, have not, right? You had this very intensive program of 18 weeks, right? You were flown down and you had to basically live there. And yep. you imbibed everything for 18 weeks, and now you've got these brand new H.A.I.L people with their badges hanging around their neck that they've just been freshly minted from a China dollar store, and it tells them that right, that they've got an immense amount of power and really no training to really use this discretionary power.
Yeah, no training and no authority, and here we are, officers with very good training, with very real authority. We're now using this authority and we're misusing it. And I want to emphasize that to any officer who's in the field, who's active and watching this. This is a gross misuse of our authority. And the reason why, I talk to police officers all the time, and they just can't believe what we're able to do at the border, right? Just searching a vehicle without cause, going through someone's cell phone. We have powers to just strip you naked, right? We can search as far as we want to take the exam. We can take it. We can detain you for up to a week before you even see a judge if we have reason to believe that you swallowed narcotics, and we have a special toilet where we're going to wait for you to take a poop on, okay? And very, very, very real authority, but for a very good reason. So to watch this authority that we have that relates to national security now just being misused and gifted to the Public Health Agency of Canada this far in the game, when, let's take a look around. Look at all these other countries that were just as heavy-handed as us when it came to responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, and almost all of those countries have dropped everything. And here we are just tightening things up, right? Someone said to me the other day, Canada is just so far behind, and they sent me an article about the Cayman Islands, which was very tough. Very, very, very tough. Their restrictions were worse than ours. They were sending people out of the country if you weren't a citizen. Off the island you go. Wow. They've now dropped all entry requirements. You don't need to take a test. You don't need to disclose your vaccination status. None of that. And this person said to me, Canada is just so far behind.
Incredible.
And I said, no. We're just that much farther ahead. Okay,
Right.
we're just that much.
I
Right,
like it.
Right.
we are
Right.
leading the charge when it comes to pushing this agenda
Right.
as far as it can go.
We had
So
a
I'll
in
leave
the
it at that.
test.
I won't elaborate there, but
I'll add another line there. Okay.
Yeah.
So in the testimony from this court case, right? In the testimony, it came out that the policy analysts were tasked. This task force, they were tasked with creating the world's strictest mandates, a world leading mandate. That's what they were tasked with very specifically. So it came, and they've cited cabinet confidence, which means that it came from a very high level political person that they are refusing to disclose, citing what's called cabinet confidence. I don't know how much you know. This is all brand new to me. I am a programmer. And that means that they are not allowed to disclose who it came from. And at the very same time, this is really interesting too, there's a secret group that was created, a committee that was headed by Justin Trudeau. I'm going to put that together in some coming videos. But the decision-making process has been so opaque, in other words, to the public. But they had a mandate. It was given to them, a mandate meaning something they had to implement, which was a world-leading mandate, a strictest mandate. So they were told to do this, to make it the most strict in the world. So you tell me whatever that means, and we can speculate at length, perhaps another time. But I get what you're saying here, brother. I'm going to hit a couple more questions over here. We got some more from Sam. So what you said there in terms of searching your phone, the question here was, do they have the power to search my phone? So that was answered. They really do. And
they do. However, I'd like to clarify, they cannot search your phone for no reason. So there has to be a very good reason. And if you're in that position where an officer is saying to you, give me the password to your phone, I highly suggest you ask to speak to a superintendent or a chief. They've really cracked down on us, right? We've been given this authority, and checks and balances have been put into place to make sure that we're not abusing this authority. And I'm telling you, those checks and balances are not good enough. But we need to present to a superintendent our reasons why we're going through your phone. We have to justify it. We can't just say, I'm going to go through your phone and have a look at your pictures, right? We're specifically looking for contraband on your phone. And I'll give an example. Child porn or obscene material that cannot come into the country. That's what we're looking for. So we cannot just say, give me your phone if you're in the middle of recording an officer and then delete that. And we can't order you to delete it. So when it comes to having your phone searched, yes, we do have the authority to do so. However, it's circumstantial. So
interesting.
I just want to clarify that.
No, that's great. What do you think of the body cams? I'm just thinking out loud here now.
Great idea. As an officer, I thought it was a great idea because, if you do your job and you're acting in what's called good faith, it doesn't matter. You can make a mistake. Like, you can make a mistake, and as long as it's in good faith, you'll be okay. So personally, as an officer, I would rather have body cams recording the interaction with the public. But as members of the public, I would encourage you as well. If you have the funds to do it, if you're able to buy one and that's going to make you feel more comfortable, by all means, wear a body cam.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I'm just thinking maybe you just have a GoPro. You can get these chest mounts and things like that. Have a couple batteries. You're good to go, man. You could just tape. I mean, it's amazing that we got to think this way, but then again, I was seriously thinking. I'm gonna put this out there, Patrick. I was seriously thinking to go through, to fly down either to the UK. Right, I'm a UK citizen. I was actually born there. Raised my whole life though here, but I was born there. I came when I was like a year and a half old. Became a naturalized citizen at 6, I think it was. In any case, the point is that I was thinking to do that, fly back, and then to tape the interactions and the rest. I just feel that this is at this point, okay, we're at a point where the interactions are very individualized. It's almost the way you react, who you get. Yep. Okay, and B, to be honest, we've seen, and I'm not saying, hey, we're so important here at the war campaign or nothing, but fact is that they want to silence people who run their mouth. You know what I mean? They do want to silence people who are actually speaking out. And I believe that Pan, myself, you know, the whole war campaign is, I mean, the service we're doing is by getting this information out. The exact same service you're doing. You're standing up there and you are inspiring people. And I think that's, you got to know the role you're doing. And I was talking to Dominic actually in the chat, and he said to me, he goes, Ro, it's a lot more impressive, a lot more inspirational people when you've got, you know, an elderly woman like that, you know, Joanne Walsh, right? She was, you know, held up over there, and then she was harried and harangued and harassed at her domicile regarding the quarantine, right? That almost is more powerful, right? Rather, you know what I mean? When we got these...
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of these alpha males, right? These A-type personalities,
right.
And alpha females as well, like
Right.
A-type female personalities. And then I get approached by people who have the opposite, like never been in a confrontation in their life, let alone any type of trouble with law enforcement. And here they are gearing up to, you know, it's, so you're absolutely right. It's much more powerful when you see clear as day just how outrageous and the injustice, right?
That's right. I'm thinking if I had taken footage, I mean, it was not important to me at the time, right? When my wife was about to give birth at Civic Hospital here, and we go up there and it's midnight, you know, at the Civic Hospital, and we don't have any paperwork, we didn't take any medical procedure, and we're standing there, and I don't know if we're going to get through. And if we had that footage of my wife's face, but it really was the last thing on my mind to make a video when my wife's about to give birth. You know what I mean? It's just I don't care about.
right.
I don't care about the internet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just
absolutely.
Yeah, man. So that's it. The point is that I want to see more people out there who are, and there's something here that I want to touch on. Okay, because I get this, and I've seen some of your other videos, and you are what and I don't know what your beliefs are, but you strike me as a spiritual person, okay?
Yes.
Somebody who's in touch, and that's why you're doing what you're doing. What would you say the demeanor that people should have when they're approaching this? So, right, some people are more used to speaking out, being loud, like you're saying. What is the demeanor? How do you gain that strength and that purpose and that calmness, right? Because you noted in one of your videos, if you go through the the cordoned area, if you walk across it without announcing that am I being detained, or, you know, if I've been through, then I'm going to pass, right? So what is the demeanor? What is that energy, the presence that you put out there when you're in these situations?
So I have done it several ways personally over the past 2 years. And I will say that when you find yourself worked up, full of adrenaline, and you behave in that way, you know, if you start to raise your voice, you get angry, you get loud, it only attracts more of that energy right back to you. So if you're going to be shouting at an officer, behaving in that way, you're going to get the same back. And that applies just to life in general, right? So do your absolute best. Try and remember that these are people who are providing a service to you. They are there to keep you safe, to protect you. And if they are choosing out of, let's say, willful ignorance at this point, not to assist you in returning to your country, which is your right, that's on them. But allow them to make the mistakes. Do your absolute best to be as calm as possible. And just on that sort of spiritual note there, if you are fearful of coming home, if you are fearful of taking a stance, well, whatever it is that you are most fearful of in life, that just goes to show where you trust God the least. So do your best to have some faith. Do your best to watch successful videos of others. You might notice that calm demeanor where you're very friendly and sort of jovial with the person that you're interacting with, it does go a very long way, because at the end of the day, these officers do have discretion. So if you approach the customs exam as if you have all the authority in the world, no, just be yourself, answer their questions truthfully and honestly to a point. When it gets to your medical status, you have every right to not disclose that. So simply say, no, I won't be disclosing that, or I don't agree to the terms and conditions of the ArriveCan application. and then take it from there. And I just, once again, knowledge is power. So the more knowledgeable that you are as a person coming into this country, then the better off you'll be in the end.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. That's right. We got to put that energy, that calmness. And I know that
it's hard.
It is hard, brother. It really is, man. You know, we feel stood upon, our rights infringed, our country in crisis. And all at the top of it, we're being lied to and made to feel like we are psychologically damaged, right? They tell us one thing. We know we've experienced the following, and yet they tell us that these things have not been experienced. They tell us that there was no lockdown. They tell us that there was these restrictions. They make us believe or try to believe a story that simply isn't true. And I know that the reaction, right, it's to get out there and to shout out the F word and to standing your ground doesn't necessarily mean being aggressive and swearing and cursing and putting out all that negativity. It means centering yourself, right? If you are a spiritual, if you believe in whatever religion you believe in, I would say pray, focus yourself, bring that calmness to yourself, and then become the immovable object. Because God is with you. That's right, brother. God is with you. So that's it. And we are with you, brethren. Become the immovable object. And I'm telling you, the source is going to speak to you. Hail, brethren. All right, let me take a look over here. Yeah, I think it's important, you know what I mean, Patrick? Because people, not everybody, I mean, you're somebody who's put yourself out there. Pan is somebody who's put himself out in a court case, fighting for freedom in terms of memeing on the internet. Believe it or not, we're going to have to get into that another time. It's a crazy story.
Yeah.
Unconstitutional law used against him in Washington State. So we're all people, which is why we say the war campaign, right? It's a spiritual war. We've got to be out there. But there's also these peaceful warriors. You know what I mean? I think of my wife. She's quiet, but she's the immovable object.
And that's perfect. That's beautiful. I love the way that you just put it, the immovable object. Stand firm in your truth. And the moment you realize that this is wrong, I understand when people say, well, you know, I just want to put the mask on to do my groceries and I just don't want to hassle. I understand that mentality, but when you know it's wrong, all that's happening there in that moment is you're digging the hole that you need to climb out of later deeper. You know, so for those of us in the field who saw that this was wrong, many who complied until the day they were told, take this or you're off work, a little harder to dig yourself out of that hole when you've now complied with everything up until that point. So the moment you stand firm in your truth, and I'm an example of this because I stood firm in my truth without any understanding of what was going to happen to me. I had no idea. You know, I was prepared to lose everything in that spot. And while I did pay a hefty price at the time, God was with me through all of it and protected me. And here I am. You know, that price that I paid is in the end, there was a happy ending for me. So, and I do believe that for everyone else. I'm seeing it all over the country. The people who did stand firm and pay a price. I'll use Kristen Nagel as an example. She's still here. You know, sure, she lost her job. I can't remember specifically where she was working as a registered nurse, but if you speak with her one-on-one, you know, as far as her experiences here on earth as a human being, that was one of the best things that ever happened to her. And I can say the same thing. You know, you asked me if I'm a spiritual person. Up until 2020, I wasn't. You know, I never really questioned life. I didn't have a firm faith in God, and now I do. So,
Hail, brother. I love it, man. This is This is what it is. It is truly the Great Awakening. They want us to feel separated, divided, powerless, apathy, right? Canadians, what are we known for? Apathetic behavior. We're pure apathy. Oh, well, they're just doing this to us now. Oh, they're just doing this to us now. And we were filled and we witnessed something great. Freedom Trucker Convoy came down, Freedom Convoy, and we saw, hey, we're not alone. They told us we were alone. They told us we were a fringe minority. Turns out we're not. We got men and women. Men over here like Officer Patrick McNulty. Check out his link in the description, please. You got to follow him. It's important. He's on Instagram. He's putting out great videos. I think he's at 24K followers. The guy puts out great stuff. And he has paid a very serious price. I'm not talking about his job and the fact that he's on leave and the fact that they're now, say they're going to cancel him completely. They're going to actually remove him, okay? So that's always there as a threat, and it is a very real threat as a father that he is. But there's other prices he has paid, and I'm not at liberty to say it's private. But the fact is that nobody is alone. You have people like this, men, women, all around the country who are standing up. People down in the States doing the same thing. People in the Netherlands doing the same thing. The Dutch. People in the UK doing the same thing. People in Australia. People in New Zealand. I saw they weren't letting a journalist into New Zealand. We know that there are massive restrictions in these colonial countries. Specifically, why? That's a great question. Think about that. Are we the test cases? Patrick, I'm sure, and myself can have deep conversations about this. Pan, myself, and probably a few other war campaigners that I know. We would go very deep with this, but this is not the place for it. But regardless, remember that it is not all what you see. There's a deeper. Why are the farmers? Why are they now being... Just today, a fellow was going down from the environmental agency specifically to see the runoff and to test it on private land. Why are our farmers being restricted in the amounts of foods that they can grow to feed us? Why? Explain that one to me. We've already seen this kind of restrictions, what has happened to Ukraine. We're seeing it now over there in Germany with their gas, right, being shut off. We're seeing the Dutch saying, hey, we're great farmers and we can't produce the food to feed the world. Why? What's happening? Think for yourself. Investigate. We can't say it all out loud, right? We're living in interesting times, okay? Patrick had his link removed from Instagram. That's the way it is. But we're thankful to be here as well. And you know that we're thankful to be here as well. So we're going to put that out there. I want to go through a few more questions here. We've got... So Sam also, he's sent me a great list of questions over here. He says, what should I say in court for defending myself against this ticket that he received for not speaking to P.H.A.I.L?
And once again, this is very, very, very case by case. So as much as I would love to sit here and just give sort of generalized information, I can't. It all depends on when were you issued the ticket? Did you travel last year? Was it Emergencies Act or Quarantine Act? Was it the Public Health Agency of Canada that issued it? Or was it the Mounties? Or was it, a local health unit? It's the levels of government that are participating in this, whether it's federal, provincial, or municipal. It's just so very confusing. So I understand Canadians are, once again, terrified to stand in a court of law and defend themselves against any type of crime. And what I want them to understand is they committed no crime. If you were issued a ticket for failing to disclose your private medical information, well, once again, where was the authority to request this of you? Where was the authority to ever issue this monetary penalty? What's the justification for such a high monetary penalty in comparison to other infractions at the border? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm going off of case by case situations where people are keeping me up to date with their own trials. Most people are just being delayed. They set up a court date, they get it, and then it gets pushed back to another date, or it gets dropped altogether once there's full disclosure. So as far as what to say, if you very recently received a ticket, here's a fun defense I'll give you. I saw a guy wearing a uniform tell me that I didn't need it. I was confused. I thought he was an official representative of the government of Canada. I had no idea. And show them my videos.
Nice.
There you go. I was confused. The news said one thing, an officer said another. I trusted the officer, and then, boy, I got hit with this ticket. I promise I'll never do it again.
Tell him you saw it on the War Campaign channel. We have an old hashtag called Blame War Campaign, so maybe that'll pop up again.
Yeah, right.
Blame me, but in all seriousness, there's a woman. I don't even know if I should say her name publicly or not, but I'll just say Rebecca, and she is working with Stand for Thee.
Oh yeah. You're talking about Rebecca Shepherd. Stand for Thee.
Okay, so I can say it. There
Man, I know her. She's great. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, so she's she's put together some wonderful resources for people really to understand their rights. It's a great website where they've just condensed a lot of this stuff. But once again, they're kind of battling everything. You'll see there's like a parent resource package, a teacher resource package, if you've been let go from your job package, if you're worried about travel. So there's so many sort of battles when it comes to this. It'd be nice to just sort of streamline.
Absolutely.
Just have a one-stop shop. This is where you go for anything related to travel, because it is so important for the future of this country that the freedom for people in Canada to come and go as they please. That is Absolutely. A very, 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 very important fundamental right.
That's right.
We cannot give up that right. Okay.
People
what
aren't
happens
taught,
when you give up that right? Full-blown communism. Full-blown communism. And just travel to a communist country and just have a conversation with the bartender or whoever and ask them, hey, what's it like to live under communism? You're not going to get a good answer.
You're not, brother. We came to these countries, Western nations, right? I'm thinking my family over here, most of which who live in the UK. And like I said, I'm born there, raised here. My children are all born here. My wife is born here. And, we have roots here. And man, we got to preserve and we got to stand up for the freedom. My father wanted us to be part of the land. You know what I mean? He wanted us to be part of the nation. And I truly believe, man, we are now of the land. That's what we are. And we got to stand together. They want to divide us at every turn, whether it's from your, speaking of sexuality or speaking of your skin color or your language or whatever it is. They want to divvy up, slice and dice humanity. You understand, brother? They want to divide us. We have to be united. This is how we're united. It's not about those who took a procedure and those who didn't. My mother had to take those, right? She had to go see her mother who was dying in England, right? So she did it. You know what she said to me? She says, I had cholera when I was a kid. You know what I mean? In India. I'm not afraid of that. I don't care about nothing. She's a chemistry teacher, right? So she was, back then to prove that DDT was safe, they used to eat DDT as a chemistry demo. Believe it or not, crazy. Wow. Yeah. So she's not afraid of chemicals or nothing. The chemists are cowboys, man. Anyhow, point is that I can't separate my own blood. You know what I mean? My mother. Even though my wife and my children, myself, we didn't, but she did. How can I separate? And that's what I want. I want to see the Canadian people united, throwing out these bums at the top.
100%. 100%.
All right, let me see over here. We got, is a police officer able to forced to give an ID if a police officer is there? He says, also, the last time I was there, I heard them saying we should give him a ticket because we've got a police officer here. Would a police officer be able to force me to give my ID?
This is, a police officer at the airport. This is what I'm assuming they're
it's at the airport.
Asking, right? Yes, like a cop who's standing there demanding the identification.
Right.
No, they're going to ask you for it, but sure, produce your passport. Here you go. I've cleared customs should be your answer to them. No, I've cleared customs, right? Here's my passport if they're going to try and force you to produce anything. But my question is, why are we even having this discussion, right? Mm-hmm. If the police officer is trying to pursue you and get you to speak with public health, right? That's all they're concerned about. They're tunnel visioned. I've been told everyone in this line talks to public health. And so when you just say, I'm not talking to them, and you go to wander off, depending on who you get in that situation, Yeah. They might follow you. They might threaten to detain you. They might say you have to give me your identification because I'm demanding it of you. But no, if you finish the customs process, it's done. So there's a woman by the name of Rena Malka, and I saw her video, well over a year ago, of flying into Canada and refusing to participate in this nonsense. She's an older woman, and she just by herself said, no, I'm done here. And she crawled under the stanchions that they had set up. Several police officers followed her all the way to where her driver was waiting for her, and they couldn't do a thing. She just kept saying, nope, bye, have a nice day, and got in her car and drove away. So
there you go.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll do that. Yeah, I think it's, I hate to say it, but it's, beautiful women live in another existence, brother. You know what I mean? I feel like I might get tased if I try to do that. But yeah.
Don't tase me.
She's this beautiful woman, but she's elderly. This is what I mean. This is the exact demographic that you think would just cower to law enforcement, but she was armed with knowledge, and she realized, wait a minute, what's this line that I'm standing in? I've already spoken to officers. I'm going home. And off she went. The cops were basically just pleading with her. Can you please come back and talk to them?
That's what we need, right?
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. So once people have really paved the way and shown this is how it goes, what happens behind the scenes is management, they start pooling their heads together. What do we do? Mm-hmm. They have shift briefings with officers. Here's the wording that we'd like you to use, because they know we're trampling all over people's rights here.
We are.
So they're using words. They're using things like it's mandatory. You have to. They're using these tricks where they're handing your passport directly to public health. And once again, I covered this in a video. There's an act of parliament related to your passport. And yes, while it's true that your passport is the property of the government of Canada, it was issued to you to represent you. And you, the holder of the passport, you're the only one that can use it to represent yourself. In a circumstance where you have a child and that child's dependent on you and they're too young to understand what's going on, sure, you present the passport on behalf of your child, but at the end of the day, it's the bearer of the passport who presents it. So when an officer decides to be smart about it and take your passport and hand it to public health and then say, go get it from them, they've actually just specifically referred you, which constitutes a detention. So if they have not read you your rights, if they have not explained the reason for your detention, they have no authority to do that. And this is where I really want Canadians to use that complaint system that I talked about. Just start filing your complaints. Get these officers to respond in writing. A lot of this is happening, when an officer does that. They take your passport, they hand it to public health. They're not taking any notes. They're not documenting in their notebook. They're not writing a statement. They're just moving on to the next person in line. So when we call them out and they're forced to recall, I processed several thousand people in that one shift several months ago. It's going to look so bad on them, and this is how we just tear that wall of lies down.
Is this it, brother?
Step by step, brick by brick.
Is this it right over here? Is this it? The complaints?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that right there. It says compliments, comments, and complaints.
Absolutely.
This is it?
So in this circumstance, we're not giving any compliments or comments. We are complaints. So scroll down, you'll see there's submit a complaint. If you click that.
Well, hold on a second. What if I want to submit a compliment?
Hey, if you'd like to compliment Officer McNulty, I highly encourage that. That'll drive them absolutely nuts.
You know what? I think I might do that, actually. Hold on.
Everybody leave a compliment. Everybody.
Because it'll go right to national, and there's a good chance they'll be like, oh, yeah, that guy used to work here.
Right?
Yeah, so they know me.
All right, hold on a second.
There you go.
Here. Hold on, okay. Let me just punch in. Should I punch in my number? Everyone is going to be sending me messages. Hold on, here we go. I'll leave the number blank. I go. I would like to sincerely thank the CBSA for hiring that gem of a gentleman, Officer Patrick McNulty. Not only is he easy on the eyes, but he is also a genuine Canadian hero. Please grant him a raise as soon as humanly possible. He has
Beautiful.
done distinguished service for all Canadians. Or I should say to all Canadians. He has done a distinguished service to all Canadians. Hail, and then I'll put down honor. They won't know what it is. Accountability, integrity. Right?
You got to spell it out for him.
Yeah.
Please email me right away when he gets his raise.
That's too funny.
Perfect.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Perfect. Fantastic. All right, there
And
we
we
go.
do hope you get a raise.
That's right. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this link in here into the description right now, okay? Because it's important to do that. Give me a second here. Edit.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. We got Officer McNulty on Instagram. I'm just going to make sure that's up at your... Okay, so that's there. And then right underneath that, I'm going to be like CBSA complaint form. Okay, and here I'll say, actually I should say compliment / because people may actually want to compliment you as well, and I would really appreciate that.
They
Hail
should.
the chat. Yes, please put that out there. There you go. It has been edited in the description. Get out there and do that. What did they say? Forthwith, straight away, right away, for Patrick McNulty.
Yeah.
Send him a compliment in that form, and remember to use that form to send a complaint. Because they've got to, please, one more time, Patrick, about the complaints and why it's so important.
It's very important because they'll have to justify everything that they did in that circumstance. So if you were in a situation where you sat in your vehicle for over an hour, which I'm hearing, waiting for the Public Health Agency of Canada to write you a ticket, and no one informed you that you're being detained, no one read you your rights, and no one put you in contact with a lawyer, hey, complain about it. Just tell the story. You don't need to know anything about laws or acts of parliament. All you need to know is that, hey, this is what happened to me. I'm telling my story. It'll automatically get linked to the officers who processed you, and they will have to. I'm telling you, the way it works is you get to work and you see that you're scheduled for a meeting. You go meet with your superintendent and they tell you have a complaint to respond to within a specified time frame. So you have to sit down. This is how you start your day and write your statement, your response. It's going to be tough for officers who didn't take any notes or who are very unclear about their authorities in doing this. And it's very, 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 very important that we start doing this. This is a great way to just start chipping away at every brick in the wall. Okay,
Wow.
because, and not only that, but the officers who are choosing to enforce these tyrannical measures, just having to do extra work, that's enough of a deterrent for many people in the field. It really is. So as soon as they start realizing that complaints are piling up, anytime you encounter this situation where someone doesn't want to download the ArriveCan or they don't wish to speak with public health, officers are going to second guess their decision. They really are. They're going to think, you know what? Not worth it. Stamp, whatever. Have a good day.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Really appreciate it, brother. We've got Clyde. Do something. Hail, Clyde. Hail, brother. And thank you for that very generous donation. Appreciate it, Clyde. You know what? This is what we do, YouTubers. We send, I'm going to send Clyde a 20. He sends me a 20. We send a 20 right back and forth. Appreciate it, brother. This is a great guy. If you don't know him, check him out, Patrick. His name is Clyde Do Something. Good dude, man. Putting up good info.
Good
Really-
YouTube channel.
Yeah, man. He goes, hail, brothers. Thank you for bringing us the inside scoop from Border Services. ArriveCan. Scrap the app. That's it.
Hail,
That's
Clyde.
right. Hail, brother. We got Mr. G. I'm a dual citizen and refuse to show both passports on entry. I don't want Canada to follow me. Yeah. I'm not. Can you not show your passports? Or I don't want to show them both. Maybe he just shows one, probably, right? He has to show
I'm
one.
sure he just shows one.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
I know the U.S. doesn't allow the concept of dual citizens. So
Yeah.
when you present yourself to them as a U.S. citizen, you're only a U.S. citizen. There's no such thing as dual. Whereas Canada, we allow the concept of dual citizenship. So if you're a dual citizen, back and forth you go.
Yeah, nice. Okay, we got Donut Swan. Hail, Tony. Very talented gentleman from the U.S. Hail, brother. I really appreciate you being here, brother. He sends a cute doggy holding a championship, one of those awards. You have a dog, right, Patrick?
I do. Yeah, his name's Thunder.
Thunder. Thunder.
Yeah, little mini cockapoo. He's running around the house right now.
Beautiful, man. I got a German Shepherd over here. He's a black German Shepherd, man. I'm a dog lover. You know what I mean? I was watching this guy, and he was communicating with the dog empathetically. He was channeling his spirit into the dog. Just literally, the dog was very aggressive.
Dog whisperer.
Yeah, man. And he's just, he lays on hands. He's doing this Reiki thing, and his spirit in the dog calms down. It's beautiful to see. And he's a practiced person at this. I love animals. You know what I mean? I'm an animal lover anyhow, brother. I seen your dog interrupt your streams before, so I wanted to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anyhow, brother. We got Mexican Iron Man. Hail, brother. Thank you, Mr. McNulty. And hail the war campaign. And long live the brethren. Hail
Mexican Iron Man.
Hail, brother. Thank you, man. I got one last question for you before we sign off on today's show. This is from Mr. Green Thumb in Ottawa. This fellow, he was asking about ArriveCan. Do you know anything about ArriveCan? Because they've also got these mandates around that.
No, I don't, because the ArriveCan doesn't cross the border.
Right.
However, I've kept my eye on it, just because it's a mode of travel that I enjoy. I'm not too sure what's going on with ArriveCan, to be honest. I have no idea, so I can't really confidently speak out on behalf of them.
Okay. All right. But
I do know,
yeah.
It would just be common sense that if, the Transport Canada has dropped all requirements to provide any proof of your medical status when flying domestically. So it would make sense that they would have dropped the same requirement when traveling by train. So that's just what I'm going off of, just on the basis that no requirement for domestic travel. I don't see how they could still implement any of these restrictions.
Yeah, take a look at that, brother. I mean, there's in Canada the rules are special. The science is different here, as they say. But do take a look, and we're gonna put together. I'm gonna put up a form. I'm gonna make Patrick a moderator and admin, and then he can from there link to all his videos, and we can have a way of really aggregating the content that he's doing. Because that was the reason, Patrick, when I saw your video, I clipped it down. I wanted it short, first of all, because people want it something tight. You know what I mean? They need it injected right there. Yeah. Well, the good kind of injection, condensed. And I want to be able to build this resource. I know we got Rebecca Shepard doing Stanford The and all them, right? Bozena, she's doing a lot of work over there. Really lovely Polish lady. At yourself, I want to get all that information. I want to push everybody. You understand? I want to get them going. I want to get them watching. Check out his Instagram right there in the description. Okay, make sure you check it out. Ex-Border Cop, it's right there. Click it. There's also that complaint form or compliment form if you want to compliment Patrick on his service to Canada, and I suggest you do. A big hail. We got SoCal all the way from Southern California. He sends $50. I'm going to send you $50. See that, Patrick? He goes, here's for a few beers for Officer McNulty, but only if he calls Trudeau a cuck on air so I can clip it.
No problem.
Yeah. It's up to you. No pressure, brother. No pressure. That's just
Trudeau is our biggest beta male cuck. He's the clearest example of a beta male that you could ever possibly have. So here we go. Our commander in chief, whatever you want to call him, is 1000% a cuck.
Beautiful.
Our cuckold in chief.
No truer words ever.
That's right. Words. Make sure you check out
W. He's an absolute traitor. He's worse than that. He's a traitor.
I know.
He's an absolute traitor. He's not serving our country. He does not have Canada's needs at heart. No, we've got. Why do we have? I don't even know these people. But here I am watching someone who looks like a supervillain out of an Austin Powers movie. Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum bragging about how they've got the parliament of, half of the cabinet is in their pocket and they're very proud of their little protege. It's what is going on here? I feel like I'm watching a bad movie. So not only is he a cuck, but he's a traitor and he belongs in prison.
Ooh la la. Some spicy material right there. SoCal always bringing it. Hail, brother. Appreciate it, man.
Stir in the pot.
Right. This guy, man. We love him. All right, so let me see here. So again, check out Patrick McNulty over there on Instagram. Be sure to subscribe to WC Freedom. I'm going to send some updates out, freedom stuff as well. We've got our book. We're comic book guys. So, that's a great way to support us. And then I want to send out information specifically around this resource that we're going to be putting together. website resource to get the news out to people, one-stop shop. Because here's the fact of the matter, right? We got to go back to the old days. Not only do we got to till the land and plant our own food, but we also got to have our own sites, because we can't trust that the ephemeral nature of the internet is always going to remain static, because, again, it's ephemeral. So I don't know how to say that word. Point is, hail the chat. We got Lisa. She says, great stream. Good words. Law says, Bubba. Thank you, says Laura. Angry Atheist. I love Ro, man, but he needs to ask hard questions, man. You tell me the questions to ask, and I'll ask them, brother. Perseus 604, Klingon suit Klaus. Hail, brother. Thank you. And I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, Officer Patrick McNulty. You are a patriot. You are an inspiration to so many Canadians. And I know you've paid a real cost, but we are going to be here to support you. Okay, so don't go anywhere. Stay on the internet. You're an hour and a half from me, Thousand Islands. Stay in contact, and we got to help one another through everything, brother. Truly believe that.
Sounds good, my friend. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I
appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Hail the chat and hail freedom.
Hail freedom, baby.